My name is Laura, and for a few years I've been sitting on one of my silliest TV pet peeves stroke phenomena, and I give it a name that explains it in the least amount of words possible, but it does sound a bit bokeh. Transatlantic inferred genre. The UK and the US use the same TV terms, but they don't actually refer to the same things. This is in part due to a vague, sort of misleading grouping of UK shows into just two categories, reality shows and game shows. And the US having slightly different entertainment models needs a lot more than just these two terms. I'm going to first take a look at the UK's usage of these terms and then introduce some new terminology that will help differentiate. To give you an idea of where we're going before we dig further into it, if Survivor was made in the UK, I think it would be referred to as a game show. But in fact, it's something closer to reality that isn't reality. When it comes to TV, the UK is most proud of its scripted shows that have global renown. The general public tend to know if a show has reached stateside, like I Might Destroy You, Dairy Girls, Doctor Who, and those shows are very easy to read as drama, comedy, and sci-fi respectively. The subgenres of dramas are understood to mean the same thing wherever you go in the world. But in entertainment television, we all talk about shows using very similar but different terminology as audiences, as an industry, as award givers, and as two very connected English-speaking telly-making nations, the UK and the US. And contrary to British dramas, we would probably know a lot of US entertainment television when they wouldn't necessarily know ours. Probably due to a vast difference in scale and reach. Even their smaller shows are pretty big by our standards. Which is fine that they are a bit different, but I still think that there's shared attributes that we can group them on. So let's first look at the UK and break down how it uses those two terms, reality shows and game shows, to describe shows where specifically civilian contributors are involved. When the UK talks about reality shows, it refers to Love Island, Big Brother, I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, The Only Way is Essex, Made in Chelsea, The Apprentice, Glow Up, Drag Race, Bake Off, The Circle, Britain's Got Talent, The Voice, The Bridge, Eden, etc, etc. And for game shows, it's The Chase, Supermarket Sweep, Pointless, Countdown, Only Connect, Catchphrase, Ninja Warrior, Tenable, Millionaire, Lightning. What I'm trying to demonstrate is that it spirals out very quickly from both categories. And I do get the logic of these categorizations, but let's try and pinpoint what motifs makes us decide on which terms. First, how would we summarize reality shows? It's real people who have very TV-friendly personalities, they're in semi-staged situations, and the show is normally talk of the nation. A prize is also common, but probably not if it's scripted reality. I guess it's seeing people for who they really are, even if that is a persona, or they're focusing on like doing makeup or something. But it's more than someone just competing one time, who we only ever learn is 24 from County Antrim, but unfortunately was eliminated in the first round. Okay, so there's something. We tend to use reality to refer to shows where we follow people for the duration of a series. That makes a lot of sense because you would expect reality shows to be very personality-led, but we're still grouping Love Island with Bake Off with Eden. We'll get to the terms that differentiate between this later on. And I understand why we call the shows listed earlier game shows, because we all recognise that at their core there's a format. But then people won't delineate further between a quiz show and a game show. I think the reason why I'm baffled by the usage of game show is, to me, that conjures up a mental image of like a physical obstacle course, or like game mechanics where trivia isn't actually involved, like Wheel of Fortune. I think the UK baseline understanding of a game show series structure is that everyone has a one and done chance. Maybe there's a tournament structure.
Good news for you there, Taverners, you're through. You may want to see where you are on the diagram at this point. I can tell you that you'll now be moving to here, which seems to be L1 cubed. That's where you're going to be. And after that, who knows?
Like reality shows, they're still real authentic people, but they tend to have a skill set that is either mental, which is quiz, or physical, which is obstacle courses. But they know that they're not setting out to be personalities of longevity besides maybe 15 minutes of Twitter fame. Disciplinary skills, and by that I mean like baking, business, drag, singing, occupy a reality realm, perhaps for its aspirational career-changing potential. There seemed to be more of an ambition to be a pop star, a professional sewer, to launch a business, so a reality show could open more of a career route, whereas a game show is seen as like a hobbyist thing. While I thought my calling was to win a quiz show, I don't think many people share that dream. There are exceptions, but more often than not, if someone becomes famous after a show, it's more likely from a reality show than from a game show. Although a hat tip is in order to the quizzing circuit that have promoted some really strong personality quizzers like the Chasers and the Answer Trappers and anyone who's been on the Only Connect Christmas specials. Also, people consistently refer to Countdown as a quiz show, which, yeah, I guess when you think about it, it does feel like a quiz show, but there's no trivia involved, it's just skill, but it feels like it's too gentle to be a game show. I I think US viewers find it easier to categorise shows within entertainment because they have so much more to choose from. However, I think the UK has less game shows in the classical sense due to the limitations of like the Gambling Commission. Now, these are terms that I would use, my partner would use. These are terms that keep things succinct when you're in development meetings. And along with each term, I'm going to try and name some like-for-like shows for UK and US. Okay, so let's talk about game shows first. I think that mental image of game show that I was talking about conjures up the idea of shiny floor, big set pieces, big money, charismatic hosts, maybe obstacles, maybe gambling mechanics. If there are quiz questions, they're going to be quite easy. This is going to be things like Press Your Luck, Metal Samurai, which I appreciate has harder questions, but it does have that massive set piece. Don't, The Hustler, Wheel of Fortune. And in the UK, this is going to be Ninja Warrior, Total Wipeout, Tipping Point, The Button. Secondly, quiz shows. Quiz shows start and end in America with Jeopardy! It's a mixture of high and low brow questions. It's syndicated prime time. America also has The Chase. Mark Labette is one of the chasers, and then the 3 Jeopardy goats are the other 3 chasers. So similar to what I was saying about UK personalities and quiz. There's obviously an abundance of UK quiz shows to call from, but let's just say 15 to 1, Tenable and Impossible for a random selection. Basically, trivia is key in these shows. It determines how well you do. It'll score you either points or money. It's all quite self-explanatory. Next up is a reality show. To me, this is just kind of like an entertainment documentary. It may be people we already know. Partially scripted, fly on the wall feel. So like Kardashians and Selling Sunset. And here that's Towie, Made in Chelsea, and any of those shows that follow like a particular woman or family. In my mind, Katie Price is the first of that kind of model. There's no format, there's no competition, but to me, this is where reality ends as a standalone term. Now we're getting to a heavy one. It was making this comparison a few years ago that set me off on the whole term transatlantic inferred genre to begin with. It's strategic reality competition shows, and the US is supreme at these, and it's Survivor and Big Brother. Remember at the very start whenever I said Survivor would be seen as a game show here, and then I said that game shows were formats? Well, both of these shows are formats, but the difference here is that the show implements the parameters for the strategy, i.e. determining when people are to be voted out, and otherwise takes a step back, leaving the players as game pieces free to roam therein. The social element of an internal vote is what drives these shows. The difference between getting voted out first and winning the show is down to the other players, not the show itself or an audience. This type of show works best if it's entirely internal, which we did have for series 3 of The Circle. And because the UK understands reality to mean something else, a popularity contest, viewers were confused and suspect where they saw people being sneaky and making strategic, calculated gameplay moves. But it wouldn't be called sneaky if the entire cast were doing that and not just a select few. The Circle did wonderful things to introduce audiences in the UK to strategic reality, and in particular James from Series 2 was basically adopted by the Big Brother Canada/America fandom. So winning Big Brother in the UK and the US mean entirely different things. To win in the UK is to become a new celebrity. To win in the US is to be a strategic game player. In the North American model of Big Brother, the eliminations and nominations are determined by entirely internal votes. Players campaign to each other on how they want the other person to vote about them. And because of this campaigning, everyone needs to strike a balance between their personal relationships and their alliances from the moment the game starts. Even the winner isn't determined by a public vote. A selection of the most recently evicted housemates determine who they want to win. So you could understand why everyone's playing with strategy there. Compare this with Big Brother in the UK, which basically played out hand in hand with the tabloids. And by having a public phone vote, you're denying your players a tangible way for them to change their own fate. The people playing with you don't actually have an influence on what's going to happen to you. I imagine that feeling of helplessness is also what triggered a lot of like the famous fights. I get that it's interesting as a conceit to the audience that these people are living without knowing the public perception of them. But understandably, because of that, it's very hard to strategize how you could ever win in that kind of model. That reminds me that there's this thing that Channel 4 tends to do in particular, for better or for worse, and it's to pair a reality format with the conceit that it's a social experiment. The Circle's take on it was anyone can be anyone in The Circle, which seemed to diminish through each of the 3 series. We've had people go in to stick it to the man, to prove that girls have it easier, to prove biases of racism, ageism, ableism, and we've even had, oh, I'm not taken seriously because I look like a supermodel. And a lot of the time these storylines or these players flop because there isn't anywhere to go with it. Sometimes they get voted out, or sometimes they just abandon their angle because understandably once you're in the game you're just trying to stay afloat. I think there have been some interesting stories and choices on The Circle, but I just don't think it needs to be framed as a social experiment, because then your contributors probably feel like that they need to bring something more when they probably don't. And your potential audience will either think, I don't want to watch a documentary, or I want to watch a documentary, not a reality show. I know most people don't actually think this, but I, someone who lives TV, have so often been missold by shows based on their own adverts. And to be honest, The Circle was one of them. I guess I was expecting experts and reads and situations, things that never really happened, because it's just a straight reality show. Sorry about that. Back to the terminology. Reality competition shows or talent shows are things like Bake Off, Glow Up, Pottery Throwdown. There's the occasional one of these in America, America's Got Talent, American Idol, Tough as Nails. But they also seem to quite like the imports of our crafty shows. I don't really have much to add to this one. As long as we have skilled people who still want to go on these shows, we'll still have these shows. There tends to be authority figures or experts on these shows who'll judge you. But nowadays, even if you don't agree with these judges or if you don't like them, you can still watch the show and enjoy them, because ultimately Twitter will decide who wins too. And I mean that not just in the canonical sense of who wins, but who goes from those shows to get a cookbook or a record deal. Love Island, The Bachelor, Love is Blind, Married at First Sight, in my eyes are all their own distinct thing as dating shows. These of course have a format to them, but I don't think it's fair to call them a game show when what's on the line is actually a relationship rather than money most of the time. I don't know, to me it seems slightly too vulnerable to either label it as strategic or just as a reality competition. Also, as there's an increasing amount of celebrity as contestant shows, I would like to say I don't really class those as game shows. To me, they fall somewhere in between a gang show and a panel show. A lot of the time, you're guaranteed better content from people who are at the very least aware of each other. A lot of people want a taskmaster for civilians, but that kind of happened in the form of The Button, which had one series a few years ago, and it was very good. I think I might have covered everything that I wanted to, besides maybe, the odd hypnotism type show or Stars in Their Eyes where someone gets treated like a celebrity as a one-time thing. And I think we can say, at the end of all of that, we have no idea what Countdown is. Thanks for watching. Thanks if you stuck it out to the end. Probably saw the script in the background. You didn't see me almost fall down these stairs. I got my nails done in the middle of it. I hope that was at least somewhat interesting. If it wasn't, that's fine. You don't need to tell me. I hope you're good, and I hope next time I make an easier video for my own sake. Bye.